So you need to realize that Darwinian evolution, what it does, since the scientific equipment they used was primitive at that point in time, they were just making observations based on looking around. And they, for example, they look at a moth species on one island, and we see it's a different color on another island. Therefore, by just observing, looking around at nature, they're trying to explain naturalism, and they say, oh, the different colors and the different sizes proves that there's different species of these moths. Therefore, the one moth must have become a different moth through the process of evolution. Through many years on this different island, they evolved into a different species. This is all the atheists needed to build their foundation of unbelief in a theistic God. And that is what we find is the motive, is to push away the theistic God. Darwinism became the foundational theory, and his writings became biblical to them in their wants and their beliefs. Their very desire that the Bible explains in general revelation, a desire to worship, was just waiting to be worshipped in naturalism, and it explains Romans chapter 1 perfectly. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and they worshiped the creature rather than the Creator. This is within them, and it was prophesied, and it has been throughout all of history that people have worshipped creation instead of the Creator, because the idea of a God that you're accountable to is offensive. Therefore, people will believe just about anything to explain it away. Darwinism became the foundational theory, and his writings became biblical to them and their beliefs. Darwinian evolution founded in primitive observations and primitive scientific tools. We must mention also at this point that the audience and the founders were primarily Caucasian or white. It was also the most advanced culture and supposedly most civilized culture of their particular time in the 19th century. Even in the States, is that's where in the European countries where the most advanced things were taking place. Even in America, we were still developing cultural things. Their observations, it was from primarily a white culture, and these observations started to take place. We also need to realize that in the 1900s, there was also a lot of racism in the world, to a point where there was still pro-slavery. Pro-racism is abounding in the world. Most of Darwinian evolution, remember, is based on visual observation. For example, in Darwinian evolution, the argument is made, look at the moths on one island, and then look at the moths on the next, and you can see evolution occur by this visual observation. Now, just imagine with me for a second, those at the time of Darwin, even evolutionists today for that matter, they looked at other humans or other humans on other continents, and they must have been making these same thoughts. The same thought process must have been occurring. They say that in one continent, there's different color moths than there is on another continent. Therefore, we have another species. Therefore, they're setting up a logical conclusion that as they look at other continents of Homo sapiens and see their different colors and sizes and shapes, that they're starting to develop some other dark side that they don't talk about very much. Remember the moth. Darwinians argue these are different species that have different colors that they find on different islands. So logically, although they won't admit it, they would and should, by their own scientific methodology, are actually arguing that when they look at people of other continents, of other colors, they must also be different intermediates or transitional forms or different species. So they're logically saying that when we look at humans on other continents, for example, they must be arguing that they're looking at other species in the same way that when they look at moths on different islands, they type them as alternate species. Now, to take the Darwinian theory or religion of evolution one step further, their continued visual observation, they look at the continents and they come up with, well, there's the most coloreds on this one continent, therefore they must have been a transitional species to our continent. We are just more farther advanced than they are. This would be, for example, they look at those from Africa and they find colored people as intermediates by the same argument that they use for moths and other kinds. Well, they say on this continent, like the moth, we observe that the most coloreds are on this continent, and also this is where we find the most chimpanzees. Therefore, the logical science, according to what they're trying to set up, is that that's where this jump from intermediates to Homo sapiens took place. This is how they visually observe, unscientifically, but yet through visual observations, and they will make the argument about the moth, they'll make the argument about the fly, all kinds of fishes and insects and others that you find on different islands or continents, that because they're different colors and different sizes, those are different species. Oh, really? Well, then it goes to follow that they must be looking at humans on different islands and continents as different species. And this is what we find out to be logical in the mind of the Darwinian evolutionist that has concocted a religion of racism. There is your missing link in Darwinian evolution. It's the person of color. I mean, if the Darwinian looks at moths as different colors and sizes as different species, if they look at different colors and sizes of any other kind as different species, then when they look at humans on different colors and sizes on different continents, what we are to conclude, what do they see? They're seeing speciation. I mean, they looked at the differences in species and the differences in their own, and eventually we see that the white man is at the top of the food chain. And those more primitive of men are not quite like them. Still transitional forms, I guess. As one day, if their DNA tries hard enough, it will eventually become like the Darwinians. This is heinous. It's disgusting. In fact, it could be said evolution should be considered hate speech. Because this is the deep, dark secret of Darwinian evolution that they don't tell you, but we can see that this is how they scientifically prove animal species to be different by color and size. Therefore, how can you stop by saying, well, it doesn't apply to humans? No, that's what they're saying. But they say there's a missing link. Ida is not the missing link that they found. Ida is a lemur. The missing link in the radical racial faith-based group of Darwinian evolution, seen through rational eyes, is persons of color. The missing link in evolution is not missing at all. They're just ashamed to say what they believe it is. He's just over there where we originally found colored people and chimpanzees. They don't say that, do they? This is the dirty secret in the minds of the evolutionists. Yes, I'm playing the race card. I'm sick of people calling me a monkey when the Bible tells the truth that I was created in the image of God. And we all should be sick of it. Because if the science did prove that, fine, be it, so be it. But it is not what the science says. And it is just the desperation of men that want to rebel against God, that they're so desperate to deny the truth of the Bible that they will regress themselves back to just merely being monkey status. And when you look at the condition of the world, as we teach people that this is where we come from, it's no matter. You might think we're a bunch of monkeys the way we behave,